and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, my co-host Justin Baker, and I excited to talk about who's real, who's not in the NHL, teams, players, goaltenders. We're coming at you with anything and everything that we can squeeze into our show. Justin, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Great. I feel like we don't typically do shows in the morning. It's like maybe 1 out of 10 that we do in the morning. So I feel like I'm not used to actually needing to have some energy. I know it's not that early right now. I mean, I was up 2 hours earlier yesterday. I woke up and drove 2.5 hours to the other side of the state where my dad lives, where my parents just moved, and helped them build the frame of a deck. And then when we were done, when it got dark, I drove back home.
Oh, jeez.
So I worked for about, I'd say, a good solid 9 hours, and I drove for 5.
Wow, that's the worst.
So it's a pretty bad work commute if you were going to do that every day. But, the things you do for your dad, you just you got to do it.
Family, right?
There's there's probably no one else that I don't even know if I would do it for my brothers, to be honest.
Gosh, I hope they're listening.
I feel, my old house, my dad came over, like, we were doing my bathroom. He would come over, like, probably 3 or 4 times a week. He would leave work all day, leave work, come over, and we'd work till like 9 or 10. And then he'd go back home, go to work. Like, he was coming over all the time, and it was like a 20-minute drive. But I feel like cumulatively, he's banked a few 5-hour drives over my life. That's.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's crazy. I did a wedding. Oh, man, a couple months ago, I was filming a wedding, and no joke, it was in Muskegon, so that was about a 2.5 hour drive, and going out there and coming back was just a nightmare. And yeah, I was just like you. I didn't leave until, like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and driving back home, it was just a long. There you go.
Long for those of you that aren't from Michigan, you can hold up your right hand, and like point to the west side, kind of right around the bottom of your pinky, and you've got Muskegon. I think that's pretty accurate, right? Yeah, the weird things that Michiganders do. All right, well, let's jump in to all the things disappointing, or not disappointing. All the things not disappointing. I don't know why I said that. You know why I said that? Because I got distracted because I tried to adjust my mic and it pulled right out of the freaking thing. So here I am trying to hold on to the whole entire apparatus of the mic while trying to also think about what I'm going to say, and it just didn't work.
That's very disappointing.
Yeah, it didn't happen. So we're not talking about disappointments. We're talking about whether or not the players that are succeeding thus far are for real. And there's some good ones, players and teams. I mean, let's just start with the 4th overall scoring forward in the NHL, and that's Troy Terry. I would venture to guess that coming into this season, even someone who like follows the NHL pretty decently could probably not tell you who Troy Terry was. I mean, this is someone who had a 0.3 points per game coming in to this season with in his first 129 games, he had 48 points. And now he has broken his career high in goals and points in 17 games.
And not to mention, he's got a 17-game point streak.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable that, what he's doing. It is crazy. That's probably the craziest part, is that this isn't like, occasionally to start the season, you have some guy who scores a hat trick and then has like a 2-goal game. So early on, they're pretty high up in the scoring because they had some monster games. I mean, he's putting up points every single game to start the year. It's you talk about people talk about Connor McDavid breaking the record for most points to start the season, like per game. Troy Terry's right there with Connor McDavid, which is so strange. How do you explain what Troy Terry has suddenly done?
My gosh, it's so hard to explain what he's done. I mean, listen, this reminds me of a few years ago when Calgary was, killing it at the top of the Pacific, and I think this is an Anaheim team that everybody is playing above where I feel like they should be playing. Everybody's just exceeding expectations, for lack of a better term. And I mean, you look at this guy Troy Terry here. Don't get me wrong. At 24 years old, he's still got time to develop a little bit more. But I think right now he's kind of coming into his own. He's kind of finding his own voice. And this Anaheim team here, they were supposed to be in a rebuild, right? This was supposed to be like we're starting fresh. We just gave Ryan Getzlaf a 1-year contract because we're going to go year to year. We know we're rebuilding, so let's keep him around. But we're not going to pay him too much because he's not going to do much. But oh wait, Ryan Getzlaf is also putting up 19 points in 18 games. So yeah, and you look at everybody: Kevin Shattenkirk, Adam Henrique. All these guys are playing way above and beyond where I would have expected them. And so for a team so young with no expectations, there's no pressure there. And they're not like a Toronto team either, where the media is or New York, where the media is just hounding down their back all the time. Nobody really freaking even knows because they're on the West Coast. So They're no pressure. They just go out and have fun. And I think it's really paying off for them because they can just go out there and, this team is done. They're fun to watch. They're exciting to watch, to say the least, right now.
Yeah. And, it's Troy Terry's emergence coincides with Ryan Getzlaf's, I guess, resurgence. And the crazy thing about Getzlaf right now, he only has one goal. I mean, he practically is, I guess, set up Troy Terry on almost all of his goals. Ryan Getzlaf is a career 11.2% shooter. He's shooting 2% right now. Wow. It's not as if, Getzlaf has almost 3 shots a game. He's only scored once. What happened when Getzlaf starts shooting his career average? He's got, you're talking somebody who probably has 5 or 6 more goals than what he has right now as well. So not only is nothing going in for him, but he's still putting up big points because of Troy Terry. And I think that they maybe are just scratching the surface with what they can be. I am not sold on the Ducks being this good in terms of, are they going to make the playoffs? They're certainly taking advantage of the fact that Vegas is down, right? Or Vegas was down. I should say they're 7-3 in their last 10, but Anaheim keeping pace, 8-1-1 in their last 10. I think we talked about it on our last show, how Calgary looked like maybe they won't stay up where they are. But you don't necessarily expect Anaheim to be the team to come back and snag their place. You expect Vegas to be the team that comes back and snags their place. So it's but now when you look at the rest of the Pacific, I think that most of the teams in the Pacific have actually been better than what we originally predicted. The LA Kings are 7-2-1 in their last 10. The San Jose Sharks have not been the worst, which I don't think they've been great, but they've been 5. They're 500 right now, slightly above 500. It's really like Vancouver struggling, Seattle's really struggling, and so is Arizona. Oh, Arizona's in the Central, so they don't matter for this conversation. You look at it and you go, Anaheim actually has if they can even play remotely close to this clip, they probably could make the playoffs, especially if they can stay hot for a little while, and get themselves into a good position. Hey, remember, if you're in the playoffs at Thanksgiving, there's a good chance you're going to be in the playoffs. And right. We are we're what, 5 days out from Thanksgiving. So, things are looking pretty good for the Ducks thus far. And John Gibson has been great.
That's the other thing that people don't talk about. John
9
Gibson's
and 3.
playing
I
so
mean,
good.
yeah, he's been fantastic. I mean, you just have to weather the Stolarz games. Although he hasn't been that bad, a 9.12 save percentage. They just haven't scored for him the same way that they have for John Gibson. But I am. The Ducks are one of those teams where you're like, yeah, I can get behind the Ducks. I would love to see them be good. Like,
right.
Go and spoil some people and maybe get into the playoffs and see what they can do. Ryan Getzlaf has always been one of my favorite guys, and it's great to see him have success. And maybe a sped up rebuild. Who knows? Maybe the Ducks go out and they say, "Hey, we could go out and acquire somebody here at the deadline if we don't have to give up too much." Obviously, they're not going to give up big draft picks. If they could give up a third in a couple of years, maybe a second, just to kind of reward this team for the way that they're playing. They've got $11.7 million in cap space. I mean, they definitely have some room to wheel, and all this to say they've been doing this without Rickard Rakell for the 9 games. I mean, he's only played 8 games this year. So you would think, hey, Rickard Rakell is going to get hurt early on in the year. Yeah, that's probably going to hurt the Jets' offense or the Ducks' offense. And somehow they're the second highest scoring team in the Western Conference. It's awesome.
I know. And most people don't even think about it too. I mean, so when you look at playoff potential, right? The Central Division maybe isn't as strong as we thought. Obviously, those teams at the top, Minnesota, Winnipeg, St. Louis, are looking like they'll be okay. But Colorado's been playing. They've been playing better as of late. But no Nathan McKinnon for a while. Nashville, are they for real or not? Dallas not playing so good. They've been having some coaching issues down there. It looks like we could see an explosion or some sort of retooling here pretty quick. Chicago is obviously near the bottom. And
although I will say that you said on our last show, that was 12 days ago, you said that you thought that the Chicago Blackhawks had a little bit of that they may flip a switch and start to win some games. And since then, they are 4-1. I think they lost the game the night we recorded, and they won like 4 in a row. So you had a good pulse on that team. Since Patrick Kane's come back, they look much, much better. And since Jeremy Colton was fired.
Well, that's the big one, right? I mean, obviously, I didn't see that one coming for sure. And, anytime you have a coaching change, guys tend to grip the sticks a little bit tighter. Things seem to go your way a little bit more. You play with a little bit more energy and oomph, and who knows, they might cool off a little bit, but I still think this Chicago team, as weak as Dallas has been, I'm still not sold on Nashville. So Chicago could take advantage and make some sort of rise here. And I mean, don't forget they've still got a Vesna trophy winning goaltender in that, so
that's true.
That changes a lot of things.
That's true. I don't know if they can make up all those 7 points, but crazier things have happened. I would say that they definitely have talent. Like, it's not like there's just no way that Seattle turns this around right now. Like, it's pretty clear that the Seattle Kraken, the way that they pulled in players during that expansion draft, that they valued certain low-level players far too high. Like, they were obviously desperate to try and do this. Oh, well, this guy's going to be the next William Karlsson, right? Like, that was the conversation during that expansion draft. Was, this guy has the potential to be the next William Karlsson. Well, sorry, but Jared McCann is not the next William Karlsson. And that's exactly why the Penguins were, I'm sure, not like thrilled to just kind of toss him out. But they let him go for peanuts. The Leafs used him as, hey, don't take our other guy. And I mean, McCann he's been fine. Like, he's got 10 points in 12 games. Not like he's struggling. 27.3% shooting. So that always helps. But they just overall can't seem to keep the puck out of their net either.
Yeah, I feel bad for that goaltending tandem in there. Oh my gosh. I mean, Grubauer 875, Chris Drager 791 save percentage. It's like you have guys who are world-class goaltenders, and you would look at that duel and say, okay, cool. This is probably one of the top 10, 1A, 1B combos in the league.
Sure.
But I mean,
it's funny because looking at their defense, it doesn't seem like their defense would be the problem. Like
right.
Vince Dunn and Giordano, Adam Larson, you've got good top 4 defensemen up there, but man, it's just not coming together from a team defense standpoint. And some of that I'm sure is that they just haven't played together much. I think we look at Vegas and we go, wow, you should really have taken advantage of that expansion draft and gotten your team to the Stanley Cup Finals in 1 year. And it's just not how it usually works. It's why it's the first time in like North American sports history that it happened. It's not going to happen again. So I think this is really what people should have expected. Like at that expansion draft thing, when you had different people that were, making the selections going, we're going to get this team to the playoffs. I was like, I don't know. I don't think you should be like, you should have told everybody going into that, don't talk about the playoffs. Just talk about how exciting it is to have a team. Like that's all you need. Hey, we have a team. We're so happy to have a team. We're going to build the right way. We're going to build from within. We're going to build through the draft. Like, it's not sexy, but that's how you build a team that lasts for a long time. Like, they're good for a long time. Vegas took a weird approach, and let's be honest, they got lucky because they were the first team. A whole bunch of teams gave away a ton just to protect these B-level prospects, and Vegas took advantage of that. Seattle did not, and obviously Seattle was asking for so much. Ron Francis just, what was it, like a first and a third to protect a guy, and nobody did it. They were like, whatever, just take a guy. It's fine. Because the players that you're going to take, by and large, we can replace. And that has been true. Like, look at what St. Louis, I mean, they lost Jaden Schwartz and Vince Dunn. And St. Louis has been more than fine. I know, like, lately they've kind of been struggling, but they're sitting up in the top of the Central with Winnipeg and Minnesota. They've been fine. They've managed it. They've actually used losing those guys in order to bring up some of their younger players and have really reinfused the team. So that actually was like almost a benefit for the Blues that they had to give up a couple players. So Jordan Kyrou thanks you.
My gosh. Yeah, he's been a revelation.
Yeah, that's another one. I mean, Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, Ivan Barbashev, they've all been really good for the Blues. Well, where do you want to go next? You want to talk some goalies. I know you want to talk some goalies.
Would I love to talk some goalies? I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, right now Jack Campbell's sitting atop the NHL as far as save percentage is concerned. But looking at the guys underneath him, and maybe are some more marquee names, not to say that Jack Campbell isn't a marquee name, but I'm seeing guys that maybe at the end of the year we probably won't see, maybe a Jacob Markstrom. Jonathan Quick is sitting up there with a .940 save percentage after 9 games. James Reimer, and then Carter Hart. Obviously, he's had a resurgence, and considering his year last year, I mean, he's turned it around quite nicely. And so, I guess I want to ask you, Mark. Looking at these goalies at the top of the pile here, who's for real and who's not?
Well, I think some of this has to do with the team in front of him, right? Like Freddie Anderson. Absolutely great start, which he doesn't normally have a great start. I think his stats are often maybe shaded differently because he has bad starts. And you always thought, man, if this guy could just avoid the first month of the season, he could be like pretty close to a Vesna candidate because he'd be so good sometimes, and then but he would just have those bad starts, and then obviously once the pressure got on in the playoffs. he couldn't really make that big save. But in a new market, a market where there's much less pressure, obviously, I mean, I don't think that Freddie Anderson being up there is that surprising, given the team in front of him. I mean, the team in front of him is fantastic. They're probably the best regular season team. Like the way that they're constructed, the way that they play. I mean, this team could win the cup. They're tooled perfectly to really be one of those teams where, I mean, like practically every team in the league, the right matchups, and given nobody gets injured, or the right players don't get injured, they could win the cup. There's probably 6 or 7 teams that are like that, where you go, as long as they don't run into the hottest goaltender ever, they could win the cup. And that's the case, I think, for the Hurricanes. So Frederik Andersen, he struggled the last year, but a weird year anyways. I'm willing to give almost anyone a pass on the last 18 months of hockey. So I think this doesn't surprise me with how good he's been, especially with how good the Hurricanes have been in front of him. Now, it's ironic because the Leafs last year were actually, from a team defense standpoint, like a top 5 team in the league. They were fantastic. But Frederik Andersen, I think, sometimes I always thought, this guy does a little bit better when he's got a lot of shots going at him. But he's been able to do it for Carolina. So, yeah, I like the way that Frederik Andersen's been playing. I think that will continue. It doesn't surprise me that he is where he is. But are there some other guys up there? I mean, Jonathan Quick is in the top 5 of goals against, 1.88. He's got a 9.40 save percentage, tied with none other than Stuart Skinner for the Edmonton Oilers at 9.40. Jonathan Quick, I mean, it's good to see him having a little bit of a resurgence. Some of those, I mean, it's like the West Coast in general, or a lot of guys are having a little bit of a resurgence. And, I wonder if the reason why some of these West Coast teams are doing better, California had some of the craziest lockdown rules in the United States. And I wonder if some of the struggle was like just the way that they had to live when they were at home. There's so many weird out of hockey factors that happen, and we saw it. Like the whole West Coast last year really was terrible, and all of them have been better this year. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. But I'm glad that Quick's having a little resurgence, along with James Reimer, 9.38 save percentage. So it's been fun. I do think, I mean, right now, if you were going to hand out the Vesna, are you giving it to anyone else but Jack Campbell? If we were basing it off only the first 16, 17 games, I feel like it's hardly a question that Jack Campbell has not only been maybe the best goaltender thus far, but also he's been the Leafs' best player, which there's a lot of freaking good players on the Leafs, and he has been their best player. Like, he is probably the reason that they're winning more so than some of the other guys out there. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Jack Campbell, as far as I don't know if I want to say most improved, but I guess a guy who has exceeded expectations, right? I figured Campbell would come in. He would play fine. He maybe wouldn't play this good. And I don't think he's going to have this sort of sustained success as far as save percentage, goals against for the rest of the year. But I still think he's going to finish the year with, 915, 920 save percentage. He's going to have some good numbers because I think eventually you're going to see the rest of this Toronto team kind of catch up to his type of play. And, he might no longer be the best player on the team anymore for the next, 3 quarters of the season. But for my money right now, if I had to pick one goaltender to say this is the Vesna guy right now, for me, it's Jacob Markstrom. I mean, this guy is playing the lights out just like Jack Campbell. But when I look at the team in front of him, I think, Markstrom has done a better job of just playing with less quality players in front of him. He's got a defense that just isn't, in my opinion, that great. And I like the makeup of Toronto's defense. They've got some really good, talented guys there. Now, again, defense has always been a question as far as Toronto's concerned, but I'm okay with what they've got. It's much better than I think Calgary's, in my opinion. And the forward group too, as well. Jack Campbell's going to get goal support, and I think Markstrom throughout the rest of the season isn't going to get it. And whether or not both of these guys can sustain their numbers for the rest of the season is to be seen. But I think right now, looking at an even playing field, I think right now I'm just going to give a slight edge to Markstrom over Campbell, in my opinion.
Here's the problem, though. Could you give the Vesna to somebody who has lost more games than they won? Because that's the case for Jacob Markstrom right now. 6-3 and 4. 6-3 and 4. So he's lost more games than he's won.
Yeah, those overtimes definitely don't look nice. But at the end of the day, what people are going to look at is basically where they finished in the standings, right?
I mean, five shutouts is pretty remarkable when you consider coming into this season in 325 games, Jacob Markstrom had 8 shutouts. And in 13 games, he has 5.
Right.
That is truly remarkable. That he has just found another level to his game. Now, I will say that maybe it's more likely that Jacob Markstrom is a Hart candidate than he actually is a Vesna candidate.
Oh, okay.
Because he's so valuable to his team. That could play a portion. I don't know that anybody's ever won, that a goalie's ever won the Hart and not won the Vesna, but
yeah, I don't
he's
think
been
so
good for his team. But has he been but at the same time, I mean, how can you what if a guy goes and wins 40 games and Markstrom's down there with 29 wins, but he's got fantastic stats? I don't know that you're giving him the Vesna. I don't know. You wouldn't give him the Hart unless they made the playoffs. You got to make the playoffs.
No, and if there's that giant of a gap as far as 10, 11 win difference,
can I just say, in 4 games, Dan Vladar has been almost as good. So it's pretty clear that there's a really good team defense for the Calgary Flames, and a lot of that has to do with Daryl Sutter and the way that he's forcing the Flames to play. So a lot of this, in my mind, that's where, yes, Markstrom has been really good. Dan Vladar, almost as good, and it's Dan Vladar. So it's clearly something's happening with the team in front of them. The way that they're playing, they play this style where they very much are sitting back looking for opportunities. Nobody's out of position. Just watching them not too long ago play the Leafs, they just sit back and they're looking for those small opportunities to score off the rush, and then the rest of it is just a dump and chase, and it's a very, very methodical, everything that you would imagine with Daryl Sutter. And they have made a commitment to team defense, and I think they have the right players to do it. I mean, they've got players who are willing to listen and are willing to do what is necessary, because I think of what has gone on for the last 4 or 5 years. The Flames have been up and down, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, have a bad season and then blow everyone out of the water, but still can't do anything in the playoffs. And so I think you've got a lot of players who are willing to listen and willing to do anything to have success come playoff time. And I guess first you got to make the playoffs, but this is clearly a team in front of them scenario over, wow, Jacob Markstrom is just blowing the lid off this thing, and his team hasn't been good at all, but he's been fantastic. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Whereas I'd say, you look at the rest of the goaltenders that are kind of high up in the statistics. The guy who probably has been actually the best goaltender in terms of what he can do is probably Igor Shesterkin, which I think, was he your Vesna pick at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
This guy he's something special in my mind. And, he carried this New York Rangers team, I think, early on in the season, and now they're starting to really get it together as far as team play in front of him. And so, yeah, he'll be a fun goaltender to watch down the stretch now that he's going to get a more consistent team play in front of him.
I mean, and you just go down the list, like John Gibson. How can he not be somebody who you go, wow, he's got to be a favorite for the Vesna? Because I think he's played more than any goalie in the league. He has by 10 minutes. He's played 10 minutes more than Jack Campbell. He's 9-3, a .926 save percentage. Like, he has been great, and Anaheim definitely wouldn't be where they are without Jack Campbell or without John Gibson. So
yeah.
You got it, like, especially with the surprise of, like, they're not supposed to be good at all. Calgary, I think we had Calgary as, like, they could be the third best team in the Pacific. Like, that wouldn't surprise us at all. But Anaheim, they were supposed to be last place. Like, they were supposed to give
them or Seattle, right?
Right. It was supposed to be them and Seattle, San Jose down at the bottom, and Anaheim's been rolling. So you look at that and you go, well, John Gibson has been a huge part of that turnaround. I mean, he's always been good, but nobody could score in front of him, and now they're scoring in front of him, and he's phenomenal. Takes a lot of pressure off a guy. Now, are there anybody up there who you go, okay, this is like, outside of Stuart Skinner or like a Dan Vladar, but people who are actually starting, anyone up here that you go, no, this is going to all fall apart pretty quick?
Yeah, for me, the one guy I kind of look to, and I hate to call him out because I really liked him when he played in Carolina. I liked him in Toronto, and I just don't think the team in front of him is going to have sustained success the rest of the way, because the rest of this division is only going to get better, in my opinion, and that's James Reimer. I don't think a .938 save percentage obviously is realistic for the rest of the season. Now, could this guy have a 9-teens, maybe get close to 920, 919, something like that? Sure. Wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. I think he's more than capable of doing that. But, again, it really all depends on how much they rely on him, how many games he starts. If they can keep him around 40 to 50 games, those numbers might be more realistic. But ultimately, I think, it really comes down to if San Jose ends up having, continued success, you probably won't see a dumpster fire. But if they start to fall off the wagon a little bit, especially with a guy like, for example, Thomas Hertl, who's going to be a UFA after this season, I think, you look at a guy like that who could get dealt at the deadline or could get dealt sooner, so they can just kickstart some sort of rebuild. But I mean, Nick Bonino's a guy who's playing at the top of the lineup, and he doesn't belong there, right? So is that, that kind of play going to last for forever? No. So, Logan Couture is playing really great hockey right now. Again, Thomas Hertl's playing good hockey, and this defense, I don't trust it long term. So, outside of maybe Mario Ferrero, I don't think anybody else is really going to have any long term success on that blue line. I think Erik Karlsson is just mediocre right now at this point in his career. Brett Burns, he's 36. I mean, he's definitely not playing an $8 million game right now. So, to me, it's just a matter of time before the wheels start to come off San Jose, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, that they look like they're enjoying playing hockey again, which is good to see. I mean, I think all the Vander Kane stuff, I think that guy is just a poison in a locker room, and so I think that definitely played a factor. And again, I do think there were some off the ice things, just with the way the world is, that maybe affected the Sharks, but it's going to be real hard for San Jose. I mean, are the San Jose Sharks going to jump the Colorado Avalanche? No. The LA Kings, maybe. Chicago is, I think, better than what they've been. Vancouver's definitely, I think, a little better than what they've been. I mean, I don't think that they obviously haven't been great. There's something wrong with Elias Pettersson, but you don't necessarily expect that the Sharks going to outplay the Canucks all year with the two rosters that they have. And the Dallas Stars are definitely better than what they've shown thus far, too. So there's just too much competition there for this Sharks team, I think, to survive. It wouldn't surprise me if they finish right where they are. That kind of like, well, it looks like they were close to making the playoffs, but they really never were. Like, I know right now that, hey, they win tomorrow, and suddenly they're tied for a playoff spot. But I think that this is probably a good start. I mean, they're 4-5-1 in their last 10. They started the season 4-2. That helps. And I think you're probably more likely to see more 4-5-1s over 10 games. And that's
I think
drop them quick.
I think the San Jose team over the last 5 games is really the true identity of this San Jose team. They were 2-3. They lost to Winnipeg, lost to Colorado, lost to St. Louis. I think those are games, typically they're not going to win. Minnesota, to be quite honest, is the way Minnesota's been playing. I was surprised by that victory too, and beating Calgary 4-1. So when you have to play, look, their schedule over the next 4 games, they've got to play Washington, Carolina, Ottawa, and Toronto. They're going to maybe come out with 1 win out of that. So, like I said, it's gonna fall apart real quick here. Luckily for them, those next 4 are at home, so maybe they might be able to pull out, a second victory or steal another point or 2. But I personally think Washington or Toronto are going to run over them. They have no chance against Carolina, in my opinion. So we'll see.
Okay. I want to talk about a team that is in first place in their division. The Edmonton Oilers. They're 12-4. They are the highest scoring team outside of the Florida Panthers in the NHL. They have absolutely unbelievable special teams numbers. They are scoring 40.8% on the power play, and their PK is 89%, or is 88%, 88.2. So in all, they're at 123% for between the power play and the PK, which is just fantastic. It's always been said, hey, if you can have if your power play and penalty kill percentage can equal 100, you're doing pretty well. There are a few teams that are in the 110 range, 113. The Leafs, the Flames are at 110. The Hurricanes are at 111. Ducks are at 112. But to be over 120 points between those two is unbelievable. And I have to say that I don't think they're going to score at a 40.8% power play for the rest of the year. That's a pretty enormous number. I don't think that any team has ever scored at that clip. And to do what they're doing on the penalty kill, almost 90% kill on the penalty, that's pretty high. And I think that you'll see that number creep down. You'll see the power play number creep down. It's not to say that they might not be they are definitely the best power play, but a top 5 penalty kill as well. But that's a hard number to sustain through the year, especially on the power play, because power plays get disseminated so much that eventually you got to think that teams are going to start to find small holes in that power play and be able to expose them. And, hey, you get an extra clear or 2 a game, and that's the difference of, maybe scoring twice in the power play and only scoring once. Because at this point, that's really all you can hope for with the Oilers, is that they only score once in the power play.
Right.
But
it really is.
But I was at the Wings Oilers game, and the Red Wings, they managed to keep that power play in check. It's not as if the goaltending, Thomas Greiss, had to bail them out like crazy, or Nedeljkovic, excuse me, he was in it. It was they actually played really great team defense and managed to clear the puck quite often and stifle the Oilers' their power play. So that to me says, if the Red Wings had a good game plan coming in on how to take care of that power play, there are going to be other teams that look at successes and start to poke at those things. So I do think that 40% is pretty spectacular, even through 16 games. I don't expect we see that high of a number at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think 40% is unrealistic to be able to sustain it. I think, realistically, this team might finish somewhere between 25 and 30% on the power play, but that's still just an unbelievably good number.
Yeah, the highest, by the way, of all time is 31.4%. 31.9% is the highest ever. 31.4, 31.2. The Canadians have the highest, and then the two Islanders teams have the next highest. The highest now the Oilers are pretty close, 29.5%. Them and the Blues have the Blues this year would have that. Yeah, okay. So the Oilers from 2019-20, that's like the highest in this list of teams. It's the highest that you can find really anywhere. I mean, the 2021 Oilers as well, or the 2020-2021, 27.6%. So I don't think that they're going to bust the record by 10%.
No. I mean, look, right now, their first and second power play units consist of Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Draisaitl. So when you've got those three guys rolling on both units, I mean, they're going to see a minute 45 of power play time, for, two out of those 2 minutes every single time. And I think eventually, I think eventually it's gonna get less and less, because you can't realistically put those guys out there for that long, especially once you get to February, where it starts to grind a little bit more and the season starts to get a little bit harder.
Right.
I think you're going to see a little bit less of them. But I mean, look, you've got other guys on this team that are more than capable of, contributing to a power play. I mean, they've got some quality guys like Yamamoto, Warren Fogle, who I really, really enjoy watching. Jesse Puljujärvi. You can give those guys a little bit more time, and again, they're not going to have the same success. But I mean, anytime you've got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on a power play, they cycle the puck so well. They find those seams that other guys in the league just have trouble fitting the puck into. It reminds me a little bit of I had the luxury of watching Dad Zook dish the puck just ridiculously good to players on the power play. Granted, the Red Wings didn't have as nice a finishers as Edmonton has and Leon Draisaitl, but
not many people do.
Right. But I mean, still, it's amazing to watch the way these guys can dish the puck right now and cycle. That's why they've been able to legitimately score almost every single game except for that Red Wings game this season, because teams they play a tight checking box. A lot of teams just play that diamond style. They try to eliminate that center ice pass in the middle there between the dots and let you play on the outside. And when you've got Connor McDavid at the point and Draisaitl on the half wall down low, I mean, Draisaitl can be at a 2-degree angle and still find a way to fit it in over your shoulder. That's how good this guy's sniping right now. So, you can't give him any sort of room at all. And he'll find the back door just about any chance he gets. So, again, it's it's fun to watch this power play right now. And there's a reason Gretzky came out and said it's the best power play he's ever seen.
Yes. And Gretzky on TNT has been fun to watch. Let's talk Nazem Kadri. 1.36 points per game. He's got 19 points in 14 games. We have seen Nazem Kadri score in his career. He has a two back-to-back 32 goal seasons. But that was between 2016 and 2018 that he had those two seasons. And his last 4 seasons, he scored 46 goals combined. So, our last 3 seasons. So now 5 goals in 14 games, but he's putting up the assists, 14 assists. I mean, he is on pace to shatter his career high in assists, which is 30, which he did in his first full year in the NHL. I mean, he should, by his pace right now, by about game 35, he'll have 30 assists or more. So what is the what's the secret sauce right now? What's turning around Nazem Kadri's game?
Well, I think first off, you got to look at the last few games. I mean, he's been playing top line minutes. He's getting more ice time because Nathan McKinnon is out. right? I mean, you look at against Vancouver, San Jose, he had a goal and 2 assists in each of those games, 2 assists against Seattle, nearly 20 minutes of ice time. That's because, again, he's filling in for, a guy who typically will eat up 20 to 21 minutes a night in ice time in Nathan MacKinnon. So when you get an opportunity, too, to slot in with some other guys like Landeskog and Rantanen, who, in my opinion, Rantanen is really just as much of a line driver as Nathan MacKinnon is, because he doesn't miss a beat when McKinnon's out. It seems like last year. I mean, you watched the way he played when MacKinnon was out for a few games too. I mean, he has the luxury of playing on a team that's got so many talented players around him too that it becomes very, very easy. I mean, look, there's no shorting Nazem Kadri. He's still a quality top 6 guy, but you could basically go to any other team. For example, I could probably pluck JT Miller right out of Vancouver, who again is a top 6 centerman like Kadri, and throw him in this situation. He would be playing just as well because, again, I think this team is well balanced between guys they have on their back end, players they have up front, and they're getting good goaltending. So when you have a system like that where guys just play so quick and so fast, as long as you got the legs to keep up, and Kadri certainly does, it's easy for him to have success.
Yeah, and I mean I'm glad that he's having some success because he's obviously had a lot of suspensions in his playoff repertoire that have, all but defined who he is. That's kind of been the definition of his whole career is, well, yeah, Nazem Kadri, good player, does stupid things and screws his team over in the playoffs, and so who really cares what he does in the regular season? He's bound to do something idiotic come playoff time. I mean, that's the, I guess, the harsh way of talking about Kadri. Now, it doesn't negate what he's able to do in the regular season. It's he obviously is somebody who he can put up some points. I mean, he's never really had a terrible year. I mean, last year 32 points in 56 games. That's a good year. I mean, you're talking about a year where you're at with between 45 and 50 points, and if that's your low, that's not bad. But that's about what he's been his whole career, right around that 50 point mark, give or take a little bit, but over the course of an 82 game season, that's about where he lands. I mean, he's on pace for like 100 points right now.
Right.
It remains to be seen if that's where he can, kind of find himself in the end. But yeah, it's one of those. I always rooted for him. I mean, he's a Leafs guy. I'm a Leafs guy, so that always helps. But I always liked his tenacity and the way that he is able to do lots of different things, play a decent defensive game, and at the same time go in the corner and grind out and has a good shot. I always liked his game, so it's good to see what he's been doing early on. But you're right, once Nathan MacKinnon comes back and he's shuffled down the lineup. Now, I will say his best seasons, when he had 32 goals, he was shuffled down the lineup. He was the third-line center when he scored 32 goals the first time. Because I think he does better against lesser competition. I think that's always been kind of a thing for him, that he needs to be put in the right scenario. And maybe we're seeing now where he's a little more experienced and he has changed his game to be able to play with and against better opponents.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with you. And another thing too is now, before, Colorado in the last few years, and somebody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but Kadri's been relied upon too to also be a penalty killer, right? So now you don't have to throw him out there because you have a guy like Darren Helm this year. You have, a guy like Logan O'Connor who you can throw in there at those penalty kill minutes and really be those top guys that kill more time for you. So now your legs are a little bit fresher 5-on-5, a little bit fresher, when you're on the power play there. And again, like I mentioned too, now he's getting top power play time with other guys in the lineup. And you have a guy like Burakovsky too, who is, typically his line mate on that second line, playing a lot better than he normally does. And so, when you've got other guys around you playing better, just obviously results in your play improving as well.
Yep. That's exactly it. Now, can we just talk about Alexander Ovechkin before we close out the old show?
The machine.
The machine. Oh man, what can you say about a guy who probably the greatest goal scorer of all time, and somehow he's better. Somehow this is like his best year. Maybe not necessarily from a goal scoring standpoint. Now, he has been very good at scoring goals, but maybe this is his best season because, wow, all of a sudden he is getting point production, and he's still scoring. I mean, 12 goals through the season. The only guy with more is Leon Draisaitl, who has a ridiculous 17. He's like scoring a goal per game pace, which is unheard of.
Let's get a 50 and 50.
Yeah, right? Some Maurice Rocket Richard crap here. Now, yeah, Ovechkin's shooting a little above his career average shooting percentage. He's still shooting the puck a ton. He's got 26 points through 17 games. I mean, he's on pace for like 130 points. and only 2 of those goals are on the power play. Right? He's got 10 even strength goals through 17 games. That is phenomenal. What do you equate to Ovechkin's success at this point? Because it's very clear that something's changed.
Yeah, that's
especially
the difference,
in
right? It's 2 power play goals. That's it, really. I mean, that's the crazy part. For me, though, the big reason why I think he's having such success is playing with the Birdman. I think the Birdman is playing some outstanding hockey right now. He's dishing the puck very, very well. And I'm hoping that, again, when Backstrom finally does come back, that they don't shuffle the lines up and remove the Birdman from Ovechkin's side, because I enjoy watching this top line with those 2 guys and Tom Wilson. It's just, they're fun to watch. They're out there every night. They look excited to play. And listen, one thing that I caught on the radio the other day on XM that somebody said, and it really, really resonated, and I thought to myself, you know what, that could explain so much, because all the hype this year, especially with, the NHL being on ESPN, being on TNT, you get a little bit more exposure to Gretzky. You have all this talk about, will he catch Gretzky, right? Will he get there?
Sure.
And I think when players, especially like Ovechkin, who's been such a driven guy, you saw when, leading up to those couple of years prior to him getting a Stanley Cup, right? He had something to shoot for. He had that passion, that drive, and he literally willed his team to win the Stanley Cup that year. I think right now you're seeing an Ovechkin who has that drive, that determination to pass Gretzky. It's just driving his play on the ice. And I mean, let's face it too, this guy doesn't need to be out there and out-dangle everybody. He doesn't need to be faster than everybody. As long as he literally goes out there and just rips it at the top of the circle, he can beat almost any goaltender at this point in his career. He's that good still. And I mean, look, 16% shooting percentage is not that astronomical as far as above and beyond his numbers, right? His typical numbers. So, it wouldn't surprise me if he sustains this type of success. But right now, if Washington can find some way to get Ovi going on the power play, his numbers could explode real quick, which is just sickening to think about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he is second in the NHL in points per 60 on 5-on-5. The only guy that has a better points per 60 numbers, Timo Meier, who is just ripping it up 5-on-5, but is, still, he's put up 13 points 5-on-5. Ovechkin's 17. It's just Meier's played less. But he's playing so well 5-on-5. Which is a not necessarily, like, it's not like he didn't play well 5-on-5 in the past, but we're seeing this kind of another side where he doesn't need the power play to put up a ton of points. Right now I mean, it's not like he's not producing on the power. He's got 8 power play points so far this year in 17 games. So you're still looking at a season where you end up with 40 power play points. He also has a shorthanded goal, by the way.
Yeah, that's rare.
Right. So yeah,
well, I mean, look,
in his career, he's got 5 of them. So out of 742 goals, 5 of those are shorthanded. 271 of those are on the power play. So percentage-wise, you're looking at like a little less than 25, or a little more than 25% of his goals have been on the power play, and this year, you're at like 15%. So it shows you how well he's been playing 5-on-5.
Yeah, I mean, look at this team. Their lineup's been decimated. So they've got Backstrom, Mantha, Lars Eller, TJ Oshie's out. So when you've essentially got a second line missing from your team right now, obviously it's translated into more ice time. I mean, he's pushing 21-plus minutes a night right now. which is crazy. So that kind of, alludes to that shorthanded goal. So maybe they've got to throw him in there for 10 or 15 seconds of penalty kill time a night just to give some guys a break. I mean,
right.
You can only throw Tom Wilson or, a guy like, Kuznetsov on the penalty kill so much because they've got to play so much 5-on-5 time. So, boy, I mean, this Washington team has been fun to watch. I mean, I figured they would have some sort of, they would start to get into some sort of decline, as well as I thought Pittsburgh was going to, especially with Crosby and Malkin being out. Now Pittsburgh obviously is definitely hit the bottom of the barrel as far as standings are concerned. But, I mean, this Washington team has not missed a beat at all.
Dude, they've been great defensively, too. They're fifth in the league goals against, only 39 goals allowed, and they're fourth in goals for. I mean, it just doesn't look like anyone's missing.
Right.
Now, I mean, they certainly have helped themselves by pushing a lot of games to overtime. They've lost 5 games in overtime already. Them and the Calgary Flames have really boosted their numbers by losing in overtime instead of regulation. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. But that's that's helpful.
Take what you get.
But man, they just have been. They've been very good. 5-on-5, and it's weird to see a Capitals power play ranked 21st in the league at 17%.
Yeah. And again, that's when you're missing a guy like Baxter, when you're missing Oshie.
Sure.
When you have these top guys out, of course your power play is going to suffer a little bit, for sure.
Right. Now their penalty kill has been pretty decent. I mean, it's 10th in the league, 83.7%. So there you go. You're above 100 for your special teams, which at this stage in the season, I think you see some elevated numbers in special teams at this point. So, but if they could stick there all year, maybe a little somewhere slightly above 100, you're still not in a bad spot, especially when considering the way that they're scoring 5-on-5. I mean, there's really nothing to complain about when you can score that way. I mean, who wouldn't rather? I'll take a so-so power play, but a phenomenal 5-on-5 team, because that's what the playoffs are coming down to. Yeah,
absolutely. And not to mention too, when we look at everything else outside of those special teams, their goaltending right now, Samsonov and Vanacek, is just playing okay. It's not playing great. I mean, their numbers are .911, .914 save percentage. I mean, it's not like it's world beaters. They're carrying teams like John Gibson or, a Jack Campbell might be doing right now. So if their goaltending stays where it is, they'll be in good shape. And if they can get better goaltending, this Washington team will be a lot of fun to watch down the stretch.
Yeah, and one thing to note for the Capitals, something they've done really well. In 17 games, right now they're second in the NHL with goals against in the third period. They've only allowed 10 goals in the third period. The only team better, the Carolina Hurricanes, who have allowed 6 goals in the third period.
Wow.
Which is just crazy. But, I mean, granted, they've only allowed... they've only allowed, what? 20... How many goals? 28 goals against. Which is hilarious. Like, it's just so good that it's funny, because I guess the Flames are next. They're 6 goals behind them. They've been pretty great too, but that goals against in the third period, that plays a huge factor in your confidence. It shows how confident the Capitals are keeping the puck out of their net. They can keep leads, and that is so key, not allowing those goals in the third. So whereas on the flip side, you look who's last, the Seattle Kraken. They've allowed 24 goals in the third period. The Colorado Avalanche, 23 goals in the third period. Montreal, 23 goals in the third period. The Red Wings, 23 goals in the third period. So you look at like the way some of those teams have played, particularly Seattle, Detroit, and Montreal. Seattle and Montreal have played just downright bad. Same, the Canucks, 21 against. They play bad. The Red Wings, who are a team on the rise, you look at a young team. And, of course, the third period is the period where all the pressure mounts, where teams take all their energy and put it into trying to score on you. And this young team hasn't quite figured it out yet in the third period, where teams are able to creep back into some games against the Red Wings. And that's just a part of the growing process. But generally, I think you can look down the list and go, yep, if you are allowing a lot of goals in the third period, it probably means that you're like something's up, you're struggling. Now, the Avalanche being that low, obviously they're not terrible, but they went through a stretch where they were things were pretty rough. But they'll figure it out. But I mean, you look at the bottom 6 teams in goals against in the third period, and 5 of them are well under 500, 4 of them under 400. So it's just a pretty good indicator as to how you deal with the pressure of being up or just collapsing in the third. All right, any last thoughts before we say sayonara?
Yeah, I saw, or listening to you talk about Freddie Anderson a little earlier, made me think, when I'm looking at the standings here, it makes me glad that Carolina, should they make the playoffs, which I have no doubt they will, won't have to face Boston, at least in those first 2 rounds. So you won't have to worry about a Game 7 with Freddie Anderson against Boston, at least in the first 2 rounds.
There you go.
Carolina.
Yeah. Freddie Anderson, I'm sure, is thrilled about that. Although there is, I mean, if they finish first in the Metro, then they'd be playing one of the wild card teams, so they could technically play Boston in there.
Very true. But I don't think that's going to happen.
So it's always out there. With Boston has only played 13 games. Oh, they're definitely still in the hunt. One other really weird thing that I don't think has gotten enough attention. The Islanders have obviously struggled. 5-6-2 in their first 13 games, only 12 points. People aren't really paying attention to the fact that they have played their first 13 games on the road. Like, when's the last time that happened? 13 games on the road.
They're getting a new building. I mean, that's the problem with getting new digs. Sometimes, it kind of gets delayed, and, obviously COVID played a big part in that. So they'll have a new place to call home, and I think their first game is tonight. So
it is indeed tonight. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if Josh Bailey's going to be available for that game or not, but I mean, that kind of sucks for him. But outside of that, I think the fans are excited. I think you're going to start to see them kind of go on a little bit of tear, because they're going to, they're just barely keeping their head above water on the road for 13 games. And you think about it, you only played 41 on the road, so you got 13 of those out of the way right now, and you did okay as far as record's concerned. So, well, I mean,
last year, obviously a playoff team, the Islanders, 11-13-4 on the road, 21-4-3 at home. This is a team that plays well at home. I mean, the year before that, 29-6 at home, 15-14-4 on the road. They have your stereotypical, hey, this is a pretty good team. Terrible on the road, great at home.
Yeah, it makes no sense now. But
the year before that, 24-13-4 at home. They had a basically an equal road record in 2018-19, but this is a team that plays well at home. They need to be home. So I think you'll see their record. I think they will creep their way back into a playoff picture when they're playing at home. For some reason, they just play a different game at home, and they have some games in hand on teams ahead of them. It's a Barry Trotz led team. I think you'll see them score more than 2.2 goals a game over the course of the whole season. So I think the Islanders will probably find their way up the standings in the Metro, which is, I'm sure, terrifying a little bit for the rest of the teams in the Metro, because Columbus has had some success, New Jersey's had success, and it's going to be a little bit tougher once the Islanders get going. All right, well, that's our show. Justin, have a great rest of the day. By the way, congratulations on closing on your house. That's fun.
Oh, thank you.
A new house is always fun. Now get to work.
You're right. For those who don't know, I'm completely gutting my house.
Yeah.
And redoing it, so
yeah,
should be a lot of fun.
That's a party. That's what I'm doing to my whole second floor. That's what I got to go do right now. So I'm going to get to work. You're going to get to work, and we'll talk soon. And you can find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let us know what you thought, and we will talk to you guys soon. Bye.